Thank you, thank you. It took not having much of a weekend or evening, but believe me, it's well worth it. And I love teaching, and I love bringing real world experience to bringing some relevance to what I teach in business and logistics. And again, those aren't my students at stock photo, but appropriate for the particular age group that this presentation relates to. So it's engaging millennials, and when Adjunctpalooza was looking for topics for professors to contribute to help adjuncts with, I thought, well, I've been teaching the millennial generation for a couple of years now, and I think that maybe I can just share with you at least what has worked for me, and hopefully it may work for you, as you will have millennials coming through the process of taking various classes here at Fscj. A couple of the classes I taught within the past year were entirely made of millennials. So I've had some good test subjects to work out some things and see what worked and see what hasn't. So statistically, this is a point in history where we actually have 5 generations of workers still in the workforce at the same time. Never has this happened in history. We got the 9/11 generation. These are folks born in the early 2000s that are going to be entering the workforce fairly soon, if not already, maybe part-time. We got our millennials, which is what the subject of this particular course is. We have Generation X, and I'm part of that generation. We have the baby boomers, and then we have traditionalist, or the silent generation, or the greatest generation. They've been known by those various names, ranging from 1925 to 1942. And of course, there's always disputes about what specific years these generations, but you'll find some commonalities in years. The dates I took from a study from Meister and Williard at the Harvard Business Review. They wrote an article called Mentoring Millennials, and so that's how they classified some of the age categories here. Some interesting stats, and I love using cartoons in all my presentations, so if my humor is dry, please be patient with me, but I like to have fun when I'm teaching. And of course, one thing you'll learn in this particular presentation, if you have fun, you'll have fun. 4 years, millennials will account for nearly half the employees in the entire world. It's kind of a surprising statistic. In Meister and Williard's book, The 2020 Workplace, based on the baby boomers and a lot of that institutional knowledge being phased out due to retirement and a lot of younger generations starting to fill out the workforce, that's the statistic that's going to be coming up in the next 5 years. Pew Research data indicates significant generational differences in things that millennials are interested in and do versus older generations. 78% of millennials play games online versus 28% of baby boomer generation. As part of Generation X, I'm a gamer, so I play Xbox and online games and things like that. So I have something I can talk to, which kind of surprises some of my students. Like, wow, you're playing Xbox? Like, yeah, what kind of games do you like? Well, I like RPGs. I like fighting games. So created social networking profiles. I'm surprised it's only 75% versus 30% of baby boomers. Within the last year, I opened my first Twitter account. I actually like it. I'm on there getting information about people or celebrities I'm interested into, movies that are coming out, bits of humor that are relevant that I can relate to maybe something that I'm teaching. And we'll talk about current events a little bit later in the presentation. But it's kind of neat where not that I've told my students to follow me on the Twitter profile, but I mean, some of the things I post are kind of mundane. I have 3 cats, so I'll take pictures and post what they've done that's kind of humorous that day. The straw millennial, I don't know if that's true, but sometimes we have these stereotypes about millennials. Let's see, Instagramming a salad. I'm actually one of those folks that'll actually take pictures of food. If I go to a restaurant, it's kind of neat, and I'll post it just because I think it's just kind of neat to share. Oh, this was a delicious meal. Here's what it looked like before I ate it. A trophy for what? For nothing, for breathing during soccer. After 7 years of teaching middle school, I did kind of notice that trend. Back when I was in middle school, I mean, the coach yells at you to win, but then Of course, I think they don't want to harm the fragile nature of the youth by, everybody wins, everybody gets a trophy. So they're kind of, I guess they grew up on that. Checking in on Foursquare, wearing skinny jeans. Again, some of these, it's kind of funny because some of these are actually kind of true. What in the world does this say? Anybody have a good translation? This is kind of, I teach business writing. And so this is what I have to go up against sometimes when I get submitted work. This is an extreme example, but of what they deal on a regular basis. And sometimes you have to break them of that habit to write professionally. Anybody want to venture a try on what this says? Yes.
Hey, what's up? I've got a question. Can we write our research paper with text message language, or do we write like our parents did back then? Paper will be short and full something text.
Yeah, paper will. Yes. Yeah, so, hey, what's up? I've got a question. Can we write our English research paper with text messaging language? Or do we have to write like our parents did back then? Paper will be shorter if I use text language. Has anyone seen this type of language? Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. I personally am old school. I use texting, but I text in full sentences. I don't want anyone to be confused. And of course, I may be weird, and it may take me longer. And oh, by the way, I'm also cheap. This is the type of phone I have.
Oh, that's all big process.
Oh yeah. So and if I want to use apps and things, I have an iPad, but I don't have a monthly bill that I have to pay. I just hook up on the Wi-Fi. So for texting and calling, I have a phone that actually does what a phone should do. So I'm a little old school when it comes to that. All right, so I teach millennials. The last couple of classes I had this year, I had a particular grant fund from the Clinton Global Initiative called the SEED program, where we had millennials from Central America and the Caribbean come in, learn English for a year, and then take business courses and get certification in a variety of courses over the year. So I was very fortunate to teach those foreign exchange students. Also, there's a program here at Fscj called Year Up, where they take millennials that did not necessarily go to college on the traditional timeline right after high school. They're coming back to enter college for the first time in their 20s after not going to there directly. So I want to talk about what's worked for me. Kind of like this cartoon. The millennials are testing much better since we changed true to false to like and dislike. I get the joke even though I don't have a Facebook account. All right, so 5 things I want to go over that worked for me. 1, get to know your students and let them get to know you and each other. One of the things that a study at Dalton State University did was building a rapport with your students actually really helps with them wanting to engage and understand the information. So I have something that I use in a lot of my classes to get my students. Has anybody ever seen one of these? It's a topic ball. It's great because, especially since I like to have my students get together with group projects, I say the better you know your classmates, by the time you get assigned or you join up in a group projects, you'll already have some familiarity with each other. So I'll do one of the topic balls. The furthest place I've ever been, Fiji Islands. So I'm a scuba diver, so I like to, and that was one of my bucket lists that I crossed off. I'm going to toss this to see if anyone's got. So pick a topic. Introduce yourself. Intercepted. And so introduce yourself, what you teach, and then pick a topic from the topic ball.
Sure. I'm Stephanie. I teach at the Kent campus and in their environmental technology certification program. So I'm supposed to pick a topic?
Sure.
Anyone?
We will know something about you today.
How about something about my hometown?
Sure.
I'm from Menominee Falls in Wisconsin.
Wow.
So that is outside of Milwaukee. And what I like about it is that when you say Menominee Falls, you're like, whoa, that's like a foreign country. It's a really great place to live. I grew up with cows and corn, so it's a great place.
All right, toss the ball to someone else, and we'll do this a couple times and then move on. All right. Oh, got it.
I'm not a millennial. I'm not. Okay, I'm Charles Wilson. I teach economics at South Campus. And let's see what I could just. A wedding I remember. Mine.
Yours. Very good topic. All right, thank you. I should remember my wedding.
Where do you get those?
Actually, I'll have to ask my admin. If you email me, I'm M. Velasco at Fscj.
Would you call it ball again?
I'm going to, pardon?
What'd you call it?
Topic ball?
Topic?
Yes. She got them for me. I'll have to ask where they got these. But they're really cool. Actually, the title of the brand, it's called Icebreaker.
Icebreaker.
Yes, so look for that, and you may be able to find it.
Suggestion, I've used it before. I just went to the Dollar Tree and bought a beach ball, and I make my own questions.
There you go. See, I love that.
Use a Sharpie, and
Thank you.
save a couple dollars.
Money-saving idea.
Yeah.
That way you can control the topics too. What's neat is that if you teach a particular subject, have the topics pertain to maybe what you're teaching too. And then they can pick the topic to talk about. So I've seen that as well. Nicknames, preferred names. As my students introduce themselves at the beginning of class, I have on the board if they've taken any business courses, but I also include nicknames, especially if you're teaching online. And I sometimes teach a course online as well. If they have a preferred name versus their regular name, students really appreciate that you call them by the name that they want to be called. I have actually had feedback from students saying, Professor, thank you so much. You're the first person that's called me by my middle name online versus what's written in Blackboard. And so they notice things like that. Hobbies and interests. In getting to know your students, get to know what their interests are. You can incorporate that in your lessons. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of what I've done in some of my business classes as well, in problems and discussions. Sometimes if students have a particular interest, they may have a classmate that shares the interest. They may get together and want to partner up in group projects during the semester as well. I do like to use group projects a lot, especially for final projects. So the more they get comfortable and familiar with each other, the less stress about having to find a partner or a group member by the time the final project comes around at the end of the semester. And the group dynamic usually seems to be a lot better if you start that familiarity, friendliness right at the get-go. And that's based on some studies. That's something that's inherent in the millennial generation because of how centered they are and how they have a stronger bond and relationship with their parents versus some older generations. Professor Price, which I'll talk about a couple of times, did a study, Cheryl Price did a study of millennials, and a quote from her research, students are going to be more likely to work towards achieving their learning outcomes if they have a positive rapport with us. And these are some of the things, of these 5 things I'll talk about today, are going to help build that positive rapport. You don't have to be their best friend, you just have to be perceived as being on their side. Yes?
Some professors actually go by their first names. I don't choose to do that.
I don't. I have them all call me Professor Velasco. Well, no, you still get to choose how you want. Yeah.
Is that the point in that, trying to build more rapport with the students?
Well, the level of informality, I guess, depends on you. But and of course, I still have them call me Professor Velasco.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, because I do keep that level of authority, but my classroom environment can still feel friendly and informal, but still retain the authority. Very good point. I'm not going to have them call me Mitch. That breaks it down a little too much. Yeah. Outside the classroom, if I'm not their professor, it should be all right. All right. I have fun with problems. So I'm a big Simpson fan. So I have this one. Principal Skinner obtained variable cost information for 4 potential locations for his professional wrestling school and summarized it in the table below. All values are in dollars. He plans to charge the same amount for tuition regardless of where he decides to establish a school. If he believes that 700 students will matriculate each year, which location will result in the lowest cost? I highlight in blue, this is an example of sharing what I like and I'm interested in as part of a problem. So they get to know me a little bit when they do assignments or assessments. Another one, I like to use my students' names in the problem. Every semester I change up the problems. I get the roster, make sure I have my students at least virtually becoming involved in what the problem is calling. 4 of my entrepreneurial supply chain students want to open a shaved ice business during this summer. Joe thinks that demand will be high. Stephanie feels strongly demand will be low. Alex is pretty sure demand will fall in between these two extremes. The financial wizard of the bunch, Subra, which is one of my students this semester, has estimated the cost, revenues, and so forth. What's the expected profit? Again, virtually involving my students in problems. He goes, oh, okay, that's me in the problem. That's kind of cool. They like little things like that. Let me focus on that problem because I'm the one in it. Chapter 4, it takes 1 day for Peter Gibbons to complete a TPS report and attach the cover sheet. Anybody ever see the movie Office Space? Yeah. All right. Peter spends 45 minutes a day performing actual work and the other 7 hours and 15 minutes spacing out. So injecting a little humor. Which of the following statements is correct? If you've never seen the movie Office Space created by Mike Judge, you should. Happy face. This is actually verbatim what the problem looked like on one of my exams. Again, use of pop culture is always helpful. If you know, based on that first day, whether it's the topic ball or just getting to know your students on a day-to-day basis, you find or hear something that they're interested in, maybe I'll incorporate that in a problem. One example in my seed student class, I did a decision matrix, which was in a business management class, and I also used it in an operational logistics class. In the business management class, the girls decided to use the decision matrix to decide what the perfect boyfriend is. I go, great. So mostly females in the class, so it just kind of worked out that way. So they actually applied a decision matrix to something as innocuous as choosing what would be the best date, and then actually weighting the factors that they would decide. So I thought that was kind of neat. Number 2, humor. And I put in the parentheses this term called withedness. When I went through my teacher certification program, there was something they emphasized quite a bit called withedness, meaning that you are hip to what's going on with the students' lives, what they're interested in current events, to make a point. I do use cartoons in every class I teach. It may give you a little extra work, but it actually can be kind of fun, especially if it pertains to a particular topic. I use it in whether I'm teaching finance, corporate finance, business writing, logistics. I can actually go out, and if it takes me 10 minutes, I will find something funny to include on my slide presentations to have a little levity in the classroom, because from some of the titles you've probably heard me teach, corporate finance, operational logistics, that doesn't sound like really happy, fun classes. And I realize that when the students see the description and they know that they have to take it because it's part of their core course, I'm going to at least make it doable so that way they can survive with a smile on their face by the end of the course and actually do well. For example, I teach business writing, which is one of the core courses. Discuss the value of stereotyping in real life. What are the dangers of stereotyping in the work environment? So has anyone seen the movie Up in the Air? It has George Clooney in it. Basically, his job in the film is his only job in the film is he's hired by corporations to go to their place of business and fire people because they're too afraid to do it themselves. And it's actually a comedy. It was nominated for Best Picture during that year. But I want to show you how I use some multimedia to illustrate a point, because sometimes it's easier to see it in video form than you being a talking head and stating it yourself.
You never get behind people traveling with infants. You never see the stroller collapse in less than 20 minutes. Old people are worse. Their bodies are littered with hidden metal, and they never seem to appreciate how little time they have left on Earth. There you go. 5 words, randomly selected for additional screening. Asians. They pack light, travel efficiently, and they got a thing for slip-on shoes, God love them.
That's racist.
Unlike my mother, I stereotype. It's faster.
So again, also ties in with a little humor. So again, with this particular clip that I used from the movie, discuss the value of stereotyping in real life. What are the dangers of stereotyping in a work environment? Again, using multimedia, using a little humor, but again, it drives home a particular point on a topic that I'm talking about in business writing. In logistics class, I teach what are good vision and mission statements. So that way you can tie in all the business processes of a company to the company's mission and vision. Here's a couple. Which companies do these vision statements belong? Our vision is to be Earth's most customer-centric company, to build a place where people can come to find and discover anything they might want to buy online. Amazon, very good. That's their statement, yes. This one, to be our customer's favorite place and way to eat and drink. McDonald's, yes, very good. So those are great ones. They're easily able to be understood. They are aspirational. They may never get there, but everyone wants to strive to fulfill that vision. Apple, love Apple. Invested in Apple, great company. Use their products. But here's their mission statement. Apple designs Macs, the best personal computers in the world, along with OS X, iLife, iWork. It sounds like a catalog of products that they sell. Does that sound aspirational, visionary? No. But that's their mission statement. Lame. So again, you can interject a little humor, and I do this when going over a particular chapter on mission and vision. All right, number 3, and again, this is under your control on how informal you want your classroom to be. Again, you still have the authority as a professor, but based on psychological studies of how millennials are raised, they relate to adults a little differently than older generations. Dalton State College psychology professor, Christy Price, who I mentioned earlier, did a lot of research specifically on millennial students in a classroom study and surveys. One of the findings that she got was a less formal learning environment allows them to interact informally with professors and classmates. They do prefer that. That doesn't mean there's a breakdown in authority. That just means that's what they prefer to do. And if it makes them engaged and you better able to relay the concept you're teaching in class, all the better. Valencia Community College here in Florida, a professor, Ellen Pastorino, suggests the reason why this mindset is in millennials is that they grew up having closer relationships with their parents or other adults than previous generations in her study. And so the millennials play a very central role in their parents' lives. The expectation millennials have is they expect professors to not only be knowledgeable, but readily accessible and approachable, not standoffish. And sometimes you can, and they have had quotes in the study from student surveys comparing what they liked and didn't like about some of the professors, what was effective, what wasn't. And it kind of sums up in a couple of these different findings. Part of the informality, part of the rapport is if you can, and I know as professors, we don't have a lot of time, but if you do have the time, support any interests and activities that they might have. The picture on the right is of myself supporting my foreign exchange students, or a handful of my seed students. They were in the Miss Multicultural pageant here this year at Fscj. And as a matter of fact, 2 of my students, one actually won the pageant, the other one was Miss First runner-up, and that was her. She was from Mexico. And so students really appreciate when you really take the time to share an interest in what they're doing. And it really helps when you come back to the classroom, oh, thanks for supporting it, and it really builds that rapport. Another example, I assigned a comprehensive capstone project in my business writing class. And what I did was I had them get together in groups and pretend to be a consulting firm designing a social media program for a hotel chain. And so they had to present how to use various types of social media to try to get more people to come to the hotel. And so the groups were meeting outside the classroom, and one of the groups wanted me to give them some advice, so they decided to go to Hooters. And I said, sure, I like their wings. I'm going to go ahead and join you for dinner. And they actually had some good questions. I didn't give them any answers, but I gave them some guidance on how to approach the project, and they thought that was kind of nice that their professor was willing to go out the extra mile and meet with them. I've had students, especially when you teach online, and I do miss the face-to-face interaction. I prefer teaching face-to-face versus online. But when I do teach online, when my students need assistance, I've met my students. Sometimes I had a student that worked at FedEx, working the night shift, and he had odd hours. So I met him at a bowling alley after bowling my league, and brought my laptop with me to the bowling alley, and we went through some finance exercises. I've met a student who had a mathematical disability that the college informed me about, and I met her at McDonald's on mornings on weekends because they had really good Wi-Fi, and helped guide her through her assessments. And so if you have the time, and again, not all of us do, the students really appreciate it. Builds that rapport. And sometimes you get rewarded personally because that one-on-one, you see the satisfaction of knowing that the light bulb comes on. Number 4, use of multimedia, which I already gave a couple of examples of. Games, group assessments where possible versus just the regular exams. Christy Price at Dalton State College, great quote. This is a culture that has been inundated, and we've seen this with multimedia. They're all huge multitaskers, or they think they are, because there really isn't true multitasking. But that's another lecture altogether. So to just sit and listen to a talking head is often not engaging enough for them. So one thing I want to show you is games. And I'm actually certified to teach history, and I did this with a high school class. I did a Jeopardy board. Anybody ever do this? Yeah, Jeopardy board's pretty awesome. This one's in PowerPoint. So you can set up the slides with the questions and the answers. And if you have a smartboard, even more fun, because you could touch the screens just like Alex Trebek. And I actually have a set of rules, and I have them group into teams. So it's a great test prep. And you click on the slides. And I have fun because I actually say it has to be in the form of a question when you give me the response. So over time, they get used to that. And then I also bought a set of buzzers for them to use to give them that game show feel, too. So I spent $100 on buzzers. But the college, I believe, depending on who your program manager is or your dean, they might have some buzzards, so I would ask. So that way you don't have to get your own. But I bought my own for the class. So this is the example of the social media project, capstone project that I did with my business writing class. And so the purpose of the project, again, is to get them into groups, and they are to propose, and I would pretend to be the manager of the Starwood hotel chain, about their social media program that they would propose to get more people into the hotel. So they have a handout with the hotel, and they are to describe what they're planning to do. I also attach a grading rubric on how I'm going to grade it, so they're clear on what deliverables they need to provide to me and what marks they have to hit in their presentation. Another one that I encourage for group assessments, I have them design customer surveys. So I'll partner them in groups of 2 or 3 and design a customer service or a customer survey for a restaurant chain that wants to build in a certain area, and to survey the neighborhood and determine what things people are looking for in a restaurant. And that's to teach them good survey design. All right. This one I also use in my business writing class, applying persuasion principles. So we know Aristotle coined the terms ethos, pathos, and logos, and so I help them learn and distinguish the use of these in business writing. And I show them a clip of a movie. Of course, The Wolf on Wall Street got a lot of the big press, but there was a film that was very similar to it that didn't get as much press, but just as good, called Boiler Room. And I'll show you a clip that I use in this particular lesson.
From an associate broker of mine last month, and I just wanted to know if you enjoyed the information we sent you. What information?
Yeah, well, if you get as much mail as I do, you probably brush to the side. But more importantly, you made a commitment to get back to. Listen, I'm presenting you with an investment opportunity that I think you would find very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not really in the market for that right
Tell me, Harry, are you married or are you happy?
now. Actually, I've been married for 10 years.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, 6 years for me. So, listen, are you playing the market at all?
Well, I don't know about playing. I do own some blue chips. They were actually wedding gifts from our friends in New York.
Well, listen, Harry, we have an explosive situation going on right now. Pharmaceutical company Ferrotech has a drug called Paratin in the 3rd stage of FDA approval.
What's it do?
That's a good question. That's a very good question, and this is the best part. It helps premature babies develop properly.
That sounds like a good drug.
It is. It is. So tell me, those blue chips you own, what have they done for you since you got married?
Not that much, really.
Well, you see, we deal in stocks that really move.
Oh yeah, they really move.
I'd love to show you what I mean, and I can do so on a relatively small investment.
Look, I really can't buy anything right now. My wife and I are getting ready to buy a house this month, and we're trying to save every last penny.
Look, Harry, I don't care how much stock you pick up. I just want you to test me out. I want you to judge me on the percentages I show you. Obviously, I show you 30 or 40%. No matter how big or small your position is, you know, you're going to get pretty excited about my next idea, right?
Yeah.
Of course you would. You'd be handing out my business cards, wouldn't you? Right? Do this. Pick up 100 shares. It's the absolute bare minimum, all right? If I show you 3 or 4 points on this trade, it's not going to make you rich. On the same token, if the stock doesn't go anywhere, you know, you're not out in front of your store with a cup in your hand.
No, that's true.
Look, Harry, the truth of the matter is, I could sell you a lot more than just 100 shares and feel completely comfortable about the trade. But I'm asking you to start small, just to prove what I can do for you.
All right. All right, let's try.
Great. So should I send the confirmation to your business or your home?
Yeah, I need to talk to my wife.
No, you don't understand that, Harry. I'll call you right back. And, you know, I'm going to lunch.
No, I need to talk to her first.
Tell me, Harry, you're at work right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm a purchasing manager at a gourmet foods company.
So does part of your job involve making decisions?
Of course.
And so when you're making one of these decisions, you call your wife and ask her what you should do?
Of course not, but that's a little bit different.
It's different. How's that different? It's your money. You earned it. Besides, you know, all you're doing is investing it. I'm not selling crack here, Harry. I mean, you know, she's only going to be happy when she sees that you made a wise investment for the family. Just think of the flip side. When your wife does the shopping, does she call you from Pathmark to find out if she can use a coupon for Captain Crunch?
Now, come on, that's not being
No,
fair.
I know. Look, Harry, I'm just trying to make a point here. Look, we're not talking about a lot of money here. And just think what she's going to say when you bring home a big fat check because you had the foresight to see everything coming.
All right, let's try it.
Good man, Harry. Look, you made a great decision, all right? Hold on a second.
All right, so again, great illustration of, just to bring you up to speed, so appeal based on credibility, appeal based on emotion, appeal based on logic. You could see some elements of ethos, pathos, and logos. And so as you can see, my use of the multimedia actually kind of drives home various aspects of the particular lesson. And so, and plus, I actually had a couple of students say, I'm going to go out and buy the movie. So they went to the discount bin, Walmart, and actually bought the movie and saw the rest of it themselves. I actually have them fill out a worksheet. So as they're watching it, they'll fill out, as they hear it live, they'll fill out what examples of ethos, pathos, logos that they hear in real time. And then I'll have them share with each other in the classroom what they were able to find out. All right, last thing I want to go over is make teaching relevant. Oh, and of course, and this isn't just millennials, I hear this from all students. Well, I'm sure I'm learning these abstract concepts, but how's this going to help me? Well, let me see if we can apply it to something you can use in real life. So one of the first things I use in a lot of my classes are current event presentations. I make it maybe a small percentage of the grade, but what it forces them to do is to actively seek out what's going on in the real world and how is it being applied to the concept we're talking about today. So, and plus it gives them some comfort over a period of 8 to 12 weeks of presenting in front of their classmates. So every single week, they're going to present a particular topic in their own words, summarizing a current business article in 1 to 2 minutes. and it relates to business or logistics, and I'll present that. Online, I'll have a discussion board where they'll post the link and then maybe do a one-paragraph discussion of a particular current event as it applies to what we're currently learning. Millennials are more likely to perform when professors connect lessons to real life. So these are examples of some exercise that I had in my personal finance class to talk about the time value of money. So with only a part-time job and needing a professional wardrobe, Daria, and again I'm using my real students' names, quickly maxed out her credit card in the summer after graduation. With her first full-time paycheck, she vowed not to use the card and pay $330 each month toward paying down her $6,999 outstanding balance. The card has an annual interest rate of 17%. How long will it take Daria to pay for her wardrobe? Should she shop for a new card? Why or why not? Murrah saved $7,500 so far to buy a used car, ignoring taxes and assuming her money is invested in a flexible CD earning 3% compounded annually. How long will it take her to buy a car that costs $8,500? Bart Simpson, again sharing my interest, who has been married for 20 years, would like to buy his wife an expensive gold and diamond necklace for their 30th wedding anniversary. Assume the cost of the necklace will be $13,700 in 10 years. Bart has $5,400 to invest. What annual rate of return must Bart earn on his investment to accumulate enough money to pay for the necklace? When doing exercises like this, to show that we can use these concepts that may apply to corporate finance to real life situations like buying a necklace, paying off your credit card bill, saving up to buy a car, they go, wow, okay, this is stuff that I can actually use after I leave this class in real life going forward, whether it's saving for retirement. For example, what I do with these particular exercises, and again, students have different learning modalities. Some of them are tactile, and what I do is I'll have a video that I've made showing how to use their financial calculators hands-on to solve these problems as we're going through them together. So they will mirror me or mirror my video that's playing, and I'll pause it to calculate these to solve real-life problems like these. So relevance. Invite guest speakers. If you have contacts in industry to come and speak to your class on the particular topic you're talking about. In my logistics and quality management classes, I have a friend of mine who works at Anheuser-Busch. She has a degree in chemistry, but what she does on a day-to-day basis is test the beer quality every single day using control charts. And yes, it is a pretty neat job with the beer and everything. But again, applying something real life to something interesting like working for the beer plant using statistical control charts. In my logistics and supply chain class, my sister knew someone at Steinmart who was the senior supply chain manager there, and I had her come in and talk about opportunities for supply chain graduates out in the field. What's interesting about that field is that the colleges are not pumping enough graduates to meet the demand. And so she talks about what the job is actually like, what they do, what kind of graduates they're looking for. And so, again, tying in a representative from the real world to what I've been talking about in class. And of course, if you have your own experience, again, as I mentioned before, working 15 years in accounting and finance, I can bring some of what I've done in the industry to the lessons that I teach in business. I'm also a member of the Council on Economic and Financial Education, and I use this in some workshops to teach the difference between speculating and investing. So in a workshop, I'll talk about, well, where would you put your cash to work for you to beat inflation? We got baseball cards, we got comic books, Beanie Babies, gold and silver, autographs, gems. Of course, none of these is the answer because these are all speculative items. Even though they may say on those little infomercials on TV that gold is an investment, it's really not because it depends on a set of buyers and sellers. Most famous speculative item, of course, are Dutch tulip bulbs. And if you ever have a chance to go to Holland in the spring when the tulips are sprouting, I highly recommend it. It's one of the most photographed places in the world. But kind of eye-opening historical item that to illustrate a point. 16th century Dutch farmers speculated in tulip bulbs. For one tulip bulb, you could get 17 bushels of wheat, 34 bushels of rye, 4 fat oxen, 8 fat swine, 12 fat sheep, 2 goats' heads of wine, 4 kegs of beer, 2 tons of butter, 1,000 pounds of cheese, a complete bed, suit of clothes, and a silver cup for 1 tulip bulb. It's amazing, isn't it? And of course, we saw how that market turned out once the bottom dropped out of the tulip bulb speculation. Inflation. Buy some popcorn and soda at the movies, $6. Oh, I only got $3. But everyone should have popcorn and soda. Don't worry, Ben Bernanke says, I will print $3 more for you. Thanks, now I can get popcorn and soda is now $10. Inflation. All right, so we talk about investing in equities in the workshop. I like to use this example of inflation and relate it to something all students do. Go to the movies. So average movie ticket price is in 1910, 7 cents. 1956, 50 cents. I wish they still were. 1977, the year that Star Wars was released. Yes, I'm kind of a nerd. $2.23. Of course, Star Wars is being released this year, too. 1997, $4.59. 2007, $6.88. And this year, looked up this week, estimated about $8.12 a ticket. It's actually gone down a little bit. For the first time in a while. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed and are able to take at least one element on teaching millennials for my presentation. To sum up, get to know your students. Let them get to know you. Let them get to know each other. Use humor, some withedness to know that you know what's going on today to make a point. Be more relaxed. Have an informal classroom, build rapport. Doesn't mean you lose authority as a professor, but it definitely helps because of how they were raised. Use multimedia, games, group assessments. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Go out on the interwebs. You can find some games, templates, formats, that something similar that I've used. And then finally, make teaching relevant. Less dissemination, more application. Students want to know, well, how do I use it today? Right. Thank you for coming, everyone. Yes. Yes, sir.
As far as millennials go, this is the era of students with online tests, and what is it? Has there been any studies of the retention of in-class testing, traditional versus the new environment of online testing? Has there been any things to say one work has been more effective than another? Well,
Professor Price, and again, I'm going to her survey studies. I don't know if she touched on the online, but she did have significant statistical research showing that more effectiveness due to the millennial teaching methods in class versus online. But online, I'm not sure. That's a good question.
I have a bias towards in-class.
Me too. And I try to use videos in my online class as well, and I do upload my hands-on so they could mirror me with financial calculators. I haven't ventured, although I've taken a little training, I do want to take more training myself on actual face-to-face video with students. And the college does offer free training for that as well, because I've taken, I think, one of Stephanie Sipp's classes on doing the videos, although I'm not an expert on that yet. Students of this age do enjoy multimedia a lot. And so whether it's you or a virtual you, may not hurt.
Many advantages to them of an online.
The flexibility of time.
Yeah, time,
yes.
I'm not there yet.
I mean, that's one thing I do enjoy about teaching online is because I'm a night owl, 10, 11 o'clock at night, or 11 to 2 when my mind is most active. Yeah, that's when I'm going ahead and managing my online class. I'm teaching an online class this summer right now, as a matter of fact. Yes, sir.
What about Twitter compared to Facebook?
Well,
I had Facebook in a class that blew up on me.
Yeah, I don't do Facebook. I don't have a Facebook account. I do have a Twitter, but that's just more for personal use. I use Facebook and Twitter concepts and illustrations of feeds from both of those in my business writing class to show how it can be used positively for business and how it can backfire on you negatively. Because I'll have multimedia to show how business lost business because of that as well. So if you use it to apply to like a business or management concept, both pro and con, it could be useful.
Yeah, it's a lot, you have to know the restrictions. I didn't know the restrictions, how to incorporate them, and it just got out of hand quickly.
Yeah, because I use it more as an illustration of a concept rather than active using. I have seen professors use it actively, but I haven't gone to that particular stage yet. I want to get some more training on that myself. All right. Anyone else?
I would recommend to you that Skype is really getting to be popular.
Yes.
Now for academics. And you could use Skype in your classrooms instead of people coming in. You could Skype them. I'm going to start doing it this semester.
Yeah, I think that's great, especially as I teach online classes. That might be useful as well, provided the signal is strong enough.
Like
Yeah.
Skype,
Yeah.
like in Skype instead of coming to class.
Yeah, you Skype anybody into your right to your system. Yeah, the technology. That's the way to go.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And with students that are failing or having a hard time, Skype them in.
Yeah, for tutoring.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
I just want to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
I agree with everything you said about the informal classroom and so on. And I had an experience once with a class that were primarily 18, 19-year-old right out of high school, but it also had a number of veterans coming back from Iraq. And there's completely different expectations
There are.
from those two groups of the way the instructor would act and so on. Because to the veterans, you're someone in command. And there was some tension until we worked through that.
And I think I had to be flexible in accommodating that, because I actually have an example of that, something similar. In my year-up class that I had last year of my millennials, someone actually, because the enrollment period wasn't closed, actually had a veteran come into the class. At first he thought it was in the wrong class, but I realized, and I talked to my dean, oh, he could say, senior citizen veteran. But it worked out great. He actually was excited to be amongst a set of millennials. And of course, again, his teaching expectations were a little different. But then he brought a wealth of experience that he could share with his peers in that particular class.
How do millennials do after being brought up in a relaxed environment and educated in a relaxed environment, and they go work for somebody who's not quite as relaxed?
It's a good question. I talk about that in one of my management classes. Depends on how well the manager and HR personnel are aware of the differences in managing millennials versus the earlier generations. Those that don't have the toolbox to manage millennials a little differently and what their expectations are may have some difficulty. The millennials, on the other hand, walk into an environment where HR isn't prepared for them, may have some difficulty as well. Which is why, like in the Europe program here at Fscj, we have to prepare students that they may walk into an environment where there may be a more authoritative environment, maybe less relaxed, versus, say, the known casual, informal environment of, say, Google, for example. So it depends on how well the management is prepared to manage that particular generation.
Well, but I mean, who's the responsibility on management to change or the millennials to change?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. Management has to be able to adapt to the millennials because that's going to be increasingly the bulk of their workforce going forward. But the millennials have to understand they need to be respectful and adapt to the corporate culture that they're walking into until they get into an environment that's well suited to where they would like to work. Anyone else?